I mean, anyone's been in a BYD car, it's a gorgeous car. Works really well, it's a beautiful thing. Look at Huawei, incredible. People in the government in the 2 administrations ago thought they were gonna hobble Huawei. Come back stronger than ever, making incredible chips. I'm just so worried. I keep coming back to biotechnology. I'm really worried about biotech. Right now, we seem to have captured the world's interest in semiconductors and then rare earths and critical minerals that go into it. But in the past 5, 10, 20 years, China is like whipping us when it relates to biotech. Anyway, yeah, we had robust industrial strategy. And many people criticized the administration, right? Like, theoretically, you want free markets, no government, limited government interference in the markets. And the president, to his credit, decided that in rare instances related to national security, where the market hasn't gotten it right in pursuit of pure profit, a case could be made to intervene in the market. And I remember Larry and I had many, many discussions when I was secretary, because I will tell you, I'd be the first to say, industrial policy, I think, is necessary in instances like with the CHIPS Act, where it is a true matter of national security. Right? It's not about the government investing to make money. The return you get is an improvement in national security. It's not a deal to make money for the government. It's an investment because the market didn't make the investment. But I will tell you, it's much harder to get wrong than it is to get right. And those are the discussions that we had. But I think I give the president...
Wait, much harder to get wrong than to get right, or much harder to get right than to get wrong?
No, it is, sorry, it's much easier to get it wrong. It's easier to get it wrong. Thank you. It's easier to get it wrong than it is to get it right. I'm happy to talk about the things I think we did well, the things I think we could have done better. But bottom line is, look, there are some experts here in rare earths. We just rode the elevator together. 40, 50 years ago, the U.S. led the world in global manufacturing of semiconductors. We made some of the components. We made printed circuit boards in America. We mined in America. We had rare earth minerals, and we were mining. And we took our eye off the ball in pursuit. The market said, pursue profit, pursue fatter margins, pursue efficiency at all cost. So that's what happened. And as a result, we woke up a few years ago realizing that 100% of every AI chip is made in Taiwan. It's utterly frightening. And by the way, you try to find a printed circuit board made in America, or a substrate, or a chemical, or certain forms of packaging. You can't do it, and it's dangerous. So we decided in that example, where national security was at stake, we had to intervene, and we did.
The case is often made, and was sometimes made by the Biden administration, that manufacturing was good. That it was just really good to be manufacturing things, and that having a big manufacturing sector was really an important thing for a country, and that a country should focus on having a big, strong manufacturing sector for the sake of having a big, strong manufacturing sector, including the possibility that you might be able to convert it into doing military things if you had a war. But there was an argument that sort of manufacturing in general was a good thing that should be focused on. Is that your view?
Yeah, that is not my view. And I'm smiling because I would talk to the president about this. I don't know if Jake Sullivan's still here, but this is an argument that I routinely lost with President Biden. The argument will go something like this. Hey, Gov, which is what he called me. Gov, I'm sick of America being at the end of the supply chain. Why can't we make everything in America? Why can't we make bicycles and backpacks in America? I would say, Mr. President, we don't have enough labor. It's not a good at which we have an advantage in making. It's not critical to our national security. By the way, if we try to make everything in America and we don't have the capacity or the labor, inflation will go through the roof. And at that time, and still, we have a problem with inflation. he would say, essentially, I don't agree with you. I want to make more. I want to make everything in America. And so, the argument would go as such. It turns out I lost every time because I wasn't the boss. And today you have somebody else in the White House who I think would also say he wants to make everything in America. I don't agree, by the way. I'm not going to get into the long list of things I don't agree with the current inhabitant of the Oval Office on. But I don't see a competitive advantage for us in making car seats for babies. I was with Doug McMillan recently at Walmart. He's like, it's just really hard to make these car seats in America for all these reasons. Trump is like insisting we make them in America. He said, fine, if you want me to do that, when the average mom or dad goes to Walmart, they're going to pay $600 for a car seat. I don't think that helps America. But there's no national security benefit for making car seats in America. I think, by and large, we want the market to work. We want to specialize in what we are better at. And by the way, we want higher paying jobs. We want to make higher value things and higher paying jobs in America. But anyway, so that is my view.
So how about, no baby seats, no backpacks, no shirts?
Unless we could do it better, cheaper,
right,
faster.
But we shouldn't tilt the playing field towards doing those things.
Yeah, fine.
How about, there's lots of solar power and lots of people are putting solar collectors of one kind or other on the roof of their houses, and it's a good way of making electricity. Some people think it's terrible that we're not very competitive in manufacturing that stuff. Other people think it's better to be able to import it cheaply and have a lot of people install it. Which side are you on?
Well, I would say this. If it were a fair fight with China, we probably could compete. But China cheats and doesn't play by the rules. So if China, it's like EVs. It's like a little bit like electric vehicles. If China didn't massively subsidize by the state solar panels, the inputs to solar panels, the critical minerals and such that go into batteries, if they didn't, the entire supply chain for Chinese EV companies is bought for by the Chinese government, essentially. So that is not free trade. So I would say we need a system where if every country has to, should play by the rules, we would have a fair fight and be able to produce more in America. Also, there is an argument that we have a national interest in moving more quickly to getting off of fossil fuels. And so to provide some economic incentive for companies to make these investments in something that's good for America.
How do you think about when subsidies are not okay and when subsidies are okay?
Yeah. So listen, I generally think the market gets it right. Like, net, I generally think the market gets it right. And politicians, when allowed to muck with the market, get it wrong. Lots of unintended consequences, harder to, as I've said 100 times, harder to do than you would think. So I come down on the side of rarely intervene, except when necessary. And I think in instances like the supply chain for artificial intelligence, supply chain for biotechnology, pharmaceutical, critical medicines, semiconductors, which is in the AI supply chain, our food supply. There's a national interest, economic interest, national security interest, societal interest, to make sure that the market does get it right. And if left to its own device, the market doesn't price in national security benefit. The market doesn't price in long-term societal benefit or climate necessarily. So I think this is the hard question, which is why I think in general don't get involved, and the test have to pass muster to intervene. Now I will tell you parenthetically, and maybe for a moment of levity, I was at Michael Milken has a conference in the Hamptons over Labor Day, and so I went. And it was hosted at the home of Wilbur Ross, the former Secretary of Commerce, who's been nothing ever but gracious and helpful to me. And I was on the panel. It was me, Glenn Youngkin, the Republican governor of Virginia, who I think probably has presidential aspirations.
Not something you'd ever think about.
Never. Well, I told you, Larry, I'm too short. Steve Mirren, who, head of the Council of Economic Advisors.
On the Federal Reserve Board.
Yeah, now on the Fed. At that time, he wasn't yet confirmed, and a CEO of a company. So bottom line is, I walked in, I was with my husband, and it was Milken, Hamptons, at Wilbur's house, front row was like Nelson Peltz, all big Trump people. I'm on this panel. My husband whispers to me, he's like, this is like a hostile work environment for you. I said, it'll be fine, don't worry. So I get up on the thing, but meanwhile, these guys, I'm saying free trade is basically a good thing. Open markets are a good thing. I don't think the government should try to own Intel and take equity. The government owning the means of production is not a good thing. And they are all gung-ho about all of this. So it is a wacky world in which we live when the Democrat is saying less government intervention is better, and these folks are saying make everything in America, shut down free trade, and own golden shares in steel companies and chip companies. I don't think that's good.
Suppose instead of it being TSMC, it had been, and I grant you this is a bit of a weird hypothetical, CISMC, Channel Islands Semiconductor Manufacturing Corporation. And so there was all concentrated, and it was all concentrated in one place, but the one place was the Channel Islands off the coast of England. Would you have thought, no, but it's a serious question.
I get it.
Because one of the big things, I don't know whether Jake's here or not, but Jake's big thing was, at one point, was about the tax policy, was not foreign policy, for the middle class. So if you have something friendshored, but not in America, it doesn't really matter whether it's in Taiwan or whether it's in the Channel Islands. If it's really about national security, then it makes a big difference whether it's in the Channel Islands or in Taiwan. What would you have thought if the locus of global semiconductor production was kind of heavily in the Channel Islands or in Europe?
Yeah, look, in that instance, it's not nearly as urgent, but still urgent, because were there to be a hurricane in the Channel Islands, we'd be in big trouble. But maybe a good example for that is there's a company in the Netherlands called ASML. They make gigantic pieces of semiconductor equipment to do lithography, like as big as this room. And they're essentially the only company in the world that can make the most advanced of those machines. There's a company in Tokyo that has similar, but not quite as good, some other companies in the US. But ASML in the Netherlands, only in the Netherlands, can make this mother of a machine that nobody else can make, and you need it to make leading edge chips, AI chips. That is a problem. That is a vulnerability. Something happens to the ASML facilities, I don't know, someone takes over the Netherlands. Seriously, there could be an outbreak in the Netherlands. During COVID, we had so many problems with packaging plants in Malaysia. We ought to be focused on that. We ought to be doing something about that. But what's not nearly as urgent when you have the current president of China saying, we will reunite with Taiwan. And I think they will. And it's literally just a matter of time.
How do you think about the fact that Google's basic research unit is 50% larger than the whole Stanford Faculty of Arts and Sciences? And we're the leading place or one of the leading places in computer science and all of that. How do you think about these areas where the scale that you sort of have to be at is massive in a way that's not easy for our universities?
I would say two things. Honestly, I think that augurs for a lot more investment in universities and in basic research. And secondly, I'd say like there would be no Google if there were no Stanford, and there'd be no Stanford if there were no grants. So I hear his point, but to me, like, I'm just so worried. I keep coming back to biotechnology. I'm really worried about biotech. Right now, we seem to have captured the world's interest in semiconductors and then rare earths and critical minerals that go into it. But in the past 5, 10, 20 years, China is like whipping us when it relates to biotech. So as we are weaning ourselves from Taiwan on chips, we are going the other direction. We used to just do contract manufacturing with China. Now we contract out research and development. 20, 30 years ago, like 1% of biotech global patents were Chinese. Now it's like 30%. You could see the same pattern. And the thing I'm so worried about is like nothing happens in government until it's a major crisis. And I don't know how to fix that, and we don't have time. But so, what's my point? My point is like these big companies or venture capitalists investing in biotech, the risk reward isn't there for them. So either we need to have more incentive for private capital to create these biotech companies, to do this research and development, or the government has to do a lot more of it. But right now, we're just really becoming more and more dependent on China for medicine.
Thank you. My name is Zihua, and I'm a first-year PhD student at T.H. Chan School of Public Health. So my question is, I keep hearing China throughout this talk, and in recent years, trade relations between China and the U.S. has become so negative. So I'm curious, in your opinion, if you can name 3 good things that China did right in terms of its industry policies.
China has a massively effective industrial policy. I mean, as I just said, I think it's amazing. It's stunning. I mean, anyone's been in a BYD car, it's a gorgeous car. Works really well. It's a beautiful thing. That's a direct result of Chinese, subsidy. Look at Huawei. Incredible. People in the government in the 2 administrations ago thought they were going to hobble Huawei. Come back stronger than ever, making incredible chips. All because it's a champion company in the Chinese government. The list goes on. Biotechnology. I mean, they're really innovating in biotech, in quantum, because the government is pouring money into it like crazy. Also, another thing, a lesson that we could learn from China, they invest in the talent. China recently rolled out, I forget the exact number, but thousands of what we would call career and technical vocational schools. Like, the average age of biotech, of a pharmaceutical worker in America is like 55. The average age of a plumber, welder, electrician is 50-something, which now that I'm 54 sounds young, but we don't have an effective workforce system in this country. We don't. We incentivize attendance, Pell Grants, GI Bill, incentivize attendance. We send everybody to college. Lots of people don't graduate, or they graduate, they don't have skills for a job. China is incredibly intentional about a workforce strategy. We don't even teach molecular biology in most high schools, and yet we want to lead the world in biotech. So I think there's a lot we can learn from them. My only point is that under the current President Xi's leadership, it's a less free country and a much greater adversary to the United States, which I think is regrettable.
Thank you, Secretary Raimondo. This is Anfield Tam, and I am a law student from Hong Kong. And we're in the 8th year of the trade war with China. We have tariff hikes, export-import controls, the ban on TikTok, perhaps cancellation of visas of Chinese students studying in critical fields. So if you were still the Commerce Secretary, how would you advise the current president on how to correctly manage trade relations with China?
Sorry, the visual of me trying to advise the current president, I'm trying to get my brain around that. Listen, I'll tell you what I think. How do I say this? What I see this administration doing is just making moves with China that are escalatory without even thinking about the next move that China might make. So my view is as follows. The world can't handle, and it's not in U.S. interest, to have a heated conflict with China. We have almost $1 trillion, I don't remember, $700 billion of trade with China, 99% of which is in commodity goods. That's a good thing. And we have to get better at nuance with China. We have to manage this relationship and have a long-term view, operate from a position of strength, and get better at nuance. So what I would do is I'd make America a hell of a lot stronger so that I could go toe-to-toe with China. And then I would not deal with China from a position of arrogance. I would deal with China from a position of strength. I would take them at their word, and I would try to operate in a more nuanced way so we didn't have this constant tit for tat, escalate, escalate, escalate. Because right now, I think we're a little bit in a corner. We say 100% tariffs, except till tomorrow we say not. You throw 100% tariffs on China, I'll tell you right now, if they said no Tylenol, penicillin, or various other antibiotics in America, there wouldn't be any. If they decided to take over Taiwan, like, they have a lot of cards to play. So I'd get to the business of strengthening America, including our allies, and deal with them from a much stronger position, and don't try to boss them around, and have a better sense of nuance, which they do.